we're going through your 5 spring storylines. We did a video last week where I did mine, but we're doing yours next. So, we even got a fancy graphic made by Trey Yanity over at Blue and Gold, helping on our YouTube channel. Your number 1 spring storyline, battle for QB1. Surprise, surprise, Tim. Why don't you give me your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, well, originally I didn't even have quarterback because it was like, all right, we know what's going to happen, but I didn't have quarterback on there. People would have lost their mind. So, go ahead and put that number 1 and get out of the way. But really, it's really all the positions. It's QB1, Buckner coming off the the Gator Bowl. Obviously, they got Sam Hartman and all his accolades coming here, and the expectations with him this season. And then Buckner, does he truly battle? Does he make it a competition? Does he make it a hard decision for the coaching staff? And then really, I'm dying to see the battle for QB2 because you is it Minchie? Is it Angeli in that second spring? Does Minchie, who's coming, is an Elite 11 quarterback, a heck of a national prospect as well. Does he kind of throw his mix in the hat for 2024? That's what I'm curious about. So the battle for QB1 is going to be, I think we kind of understand what it is, but how far does Buckner take this thing?
All right, and let's move on to number 2. Yeah, I completely agree with you about the battle for QB2 might even be more interesting than number 1. Who replaces Patterson and Lugg at guard, Tim? That's your storyline number 2.
You got 11 years between those guys. Lugg 6 years and Patterson 5 years at Notre Dame. You have to replace. But you got 50, 60 starts combined between those two. That's a lot of minutes, those guys. But there's bodies. I mean, is this the year everyone's favorite offensive guard recruit, right? Rocco Spindler, year 3, which a lot of guys have come into their own in Notre Dame past. Billy Schroff had a lot of hype about him during last season, bowl prep. Some of the players even mentioning him. And then you got the forgotten Andrew Kristofic, the guy who started in 2020. Yeah, with Joe Alton, solidified that offensive line last year, and obviously played some a little bit last year, not as much I'm sure he's expected. But he's going into year 5 along with Zeke Correll from the same class. So they have bodies, and then you have obviously 2 future NFL offensive tackles, on the edges. So who's going to solidify that inside? You see 4 guys right from the get-go, and 2 of them rise up. That battle is going to be awesome to follow and watch.
My favorite thing about this list is Tim has no idea what numbers 3, 4, and 5 are. So he's just going to find out as you guys do. All right, so let's see number 3 here. It is, can a freshman crack the 2 deep at receiver? I absolutely love this one, Tim. So you got Jaden Greathouse, Rico Flores, and Braylon James, all enrolled early. They're at Notre Dame, ready to go for spring practice. Very excited about those guys. Rico Flores might be at like 80, 90% as he's recovering from a foot injury that he suffered late in the football season in 2022. But still, it's a talented receiver room, Tim, but you don't have like that. Man, just look at him. That's the guy.
Yeah.
It's really anyone's game for any of these receivers to step up.
No, I agree. And that's why it's like the 2 deep, because people just assume one of these freshmen is going to come in and be a guy early on. I mean, Mike, how many times people just, play the freshman, right? It's, who's the freshman wide receiver should be on the field. That's like Notre Dame tradition. Is it Jordan Johnson? Styles didn't play enough. And then it's Merriweather last year. It's always somebody.
Yeah.
But people I don't think are looking at the 2, who are the 2 deep. So when you go outside, you go to the wide side, it's Styles and Tobias Merriweather. The boundary, you got Caleb Smith from Virginia Tech, and then you got Deion Colsey. And then you got slot. I think they're going to be a huge 11 personnel team because of the tight end depth. I'm just not a fan of the tight end.
Avery Davis is back for his 12th year. So,
yeah, can you imagine? Believe it or not, man, they were taking a heartbeat played this year. So you got Thomas at slot, let's just say.
Jaden Greathouse or Rico Flores, I think, could be really good slot receivers.
So that's, when I say 2 deep, it's more, I guess, the outside because the slot can, anyway, they can put Styles at slot or whatnot. But do one of these guys Braylon James, Greathouse, to one of these guys on the outside perimeter, make hay to push someone to the middle, to get someone off the outside to where like, hey, we got to have Greathouse in the boundary or wherever they're going to line him up at. We got to get him on the field. We got to get him in. So let's move, Styles all-time slot or whatever it's going to be. So
yeah, but how can you not say if you're saying Notre Dame is going to run a lot of 11 personnel, how is the slot not count for the two deep?
Well, the slot could be Chris Tyree. The slot could be Diggs. The slot could be anybody.
But it often will be three receivers.
Yes.
So I think that if you're the number 2 slot receiver, I think that's cracking the two deep, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you want to look at it like that. I was looking more, I guess, on the outside because people just assume one of them are going to be on the outside, but then there's still 4 experienced players out there ahead of them. So does Greathouse beat out Styles or a Merriweather to crack out there? That's really what I'm looking at is the outside. Yeah, I mean, you can move anyone to a slot. I was thinking more of the outside perimeter type thing. But the slot, everyone's favorite football player, Chris Tyree, has been mentioned for 3 years. Does he play a slot this year? Do they get him in there to get that extra running back on the field? But we'll see.
Tim, as you go through the receiver, I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty good group. Caleb Smith is an exciting player from Virginia. Maybe I don't know if he's exciting, steady. He's very steady, good player, consistent. Deion Colsey thought had some really good moments last year as a good third down contributor. Styles, I mean, he hasn't emerged like we would all hope, but still a really good football player. Merriweather has the super high upside. It's a talented. Jaden Thomas was one of the surprises of last season. It's still a pretty exciting room.
No, I agree, and that's with Lorenzo Styles, everyone he has over 50 catches. He was the second leading receiver last year for all the drops and the miscues and just the down season it really felt he had. He was still second on the team in reception. So
yeah,
they do have some guys, and these guys are older guys. So as you know, sometimes a freshman, it's hard to beat down an older guy.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to your spring storyline number 4, Tim, which is you got Julian Okwara, Dalen Hayes, Isaiah Foskey. Who is the next NFL Viper to come out of Notre Dame?
This question really stems from, when Mike Elko came aboard and installed the Vyper, made that a permanent, trademark here at Notre Dame, and they still run it. The Vipers, the boundary rush end, So, and all these guys, you start thinking about, like, oh my God, they've all been drafted. Foskey obviously not yet, but we know he's going to get drafted. So it's 3 straight Vipers going to the NFL. So talk about recruiting defensive linemen. There you go. Let's make it 4 in a row. So who is that next guy? Jordan Metellow's got to jump out, number 1. His havoc percentage, something Patrick Angle talks a lot about, when he writes articles on the defense. His percentage was actually higher than Foskey. Now, he didn't play the snaps Foskey did, but if he continues that over Foskey's snaps and he keeps that production going, you're looking at a guy who could step in and be an All-American type of a candidate there. And then it's going to be the young guys. They moved Joshua Burnham there early last spring. Yeah. So athlete, people forget he was a quarterback in high school. Now you're moving him to rush the quarterback on the edge. Fantastic athlete. Do they find a way to get Snead on the field? So is he more of a Viper, which he did in the Gator Bowl, or do they just let him naturally play inside linebacker and go sideline to sideline? And then Junior Tulialamaka, we've heard, is going to play at Viper. So there's a handful of these young guys. Who's it going to be? Patella is going to be obviously the senior. Let him have the first crack, but they have some talented young athletes. I think that's the thing. Going back to this hybrid, as you mentioned, in recruiting these linebackers, some of these linebackers could play Viper. That's going back to Freeman's true defensive identity is that 3-3, or that one of those extra guys is a Viper. So you could move him back. Which I think they'll do a lot of that. But 3 straight Vipers going to the NFL, which is pretty cool when you look at it. And who's going to be that next one? Maybe we start doing a new little thing with tight ends going to NFL. Same thing with the Viper position.
All right, let's go ahead and check out Tim Hyde's number 5 spring storyline as the graphic glows here. Thank you, Michael Mayer. What do you mean by here, Mr. Hyde?
Yes. Thank you, Michael Mayer, for 3 great seasons, more than likely an NFL first-round draft choice. And now who in the heck is going to replace that production, right? I mean, he's been a stud since his freshman year. He was the 3rd tight end behind Tremble and Brock Wright. So obviously All-American season his sophomore year, and this past season, was a consensus All-American. So when I said thank you, Michael Mayer, it's just assumed, going back to the Vyper, 3 straight NFL guys, tight end, 50 years of NFL storylines at tight end. So when I say thank you, it's all right. Thank you. Now, who in the heck is going to replace him? And this is one of those little positions, like people just assume it's the next guy in is going to the NFL, correct? Mitchell Evans is a fantastic football player, but Raridan's still out. You've got Kevin Bauman is injured and still out, correct? So tight ends is what stays, and Evans this spring, and then you get Cooper Flanagan in the summertime. So thank you, as in thank you. Now who's next? And that's going to be it's one of those hidden positions people just keep assuming, but it's like this is why I think they're going to do a lot of 11 and not 12 this year, because they don't have the tight end depth as the last couple of years.
Thank you. Next, wise words from Ariana Grande.